The Boston Celtics are back in the gym, and even though it's still early in training camp, there's already something different in the air. You can feel it in the energy, the way the players talk about practice, the hints being dropped by insiders. This isn't just another slow ramp-up to the regular season. This feels like a team preparing to flip the switch on their identity. After years of controlling the pace, playing deliberate half-court basketball, the Celtics are getting ready to run. And not just run in transition, run like their lives depend on it. Run like their season depends on it. And honestly, the kind of urgency might be exactly what this team needs. For the past few years, there's been this recurring theme with the Celtics. Talent stacked across the board, but sometimes the execution just doesn't match up. They've been methodical, they've been technical, and yeah, they've been successful, but they haven't always looked like they were playing with fire. Well, that might be about to change. Head coach Joe Mazzulla is pushing for a stylistic shift that sounds more like chaos than control, and that's not a bad thing. Fast pace, quick decisions, hockey-style substitutions, full court pressure. It's like he's trying to install a system that breaks the rhythm of every other team in the league. The Celtics haven't finished in the top half of the league in pace since they drafted Jason Tatum back in 2017. Last season, they ranked 29th. That's not just slow, it's glacial. But now, based on what players like Peyton Pritchard are saying, the brakes are off. Mazzulla wants tempo, and not just in bursts. He wants it all game long. Pritchard even hinted that this team is prepared to play much faster this year. That's a big statement, especially coming from a guy who's been with the team through multiple playoff runs and knows what Celtics basketball has traditionally looked like. What's wild is this isn't just about picking up the pace offensively. It's a complete philosophical shift. It's defense setting the tone, pressure starting from the moment the opposing point guard crosses half court, rotating fresh legs like line changes in hockey. Mazzulla wants his players to go full throttle for short bursts, then rotate and reset. And it's not just theory. They're practicing this way right now. They're building conditioning to support it. Because let's be honest, it's one thing to say you want to run. It's another thing entirely to have the lungs and legs to back it up in the fourth quarter of a tight game. And this shift isn't only happening because it sounds good on paper. There's actual logic behind it. For years, underdogs have used pace as a weapon, whether to speed things up or slow things down. But in recent seasons, more and more teams are realizing that if you're not the more talented squad, grinding the game down might not actually help you. Teams with top-tier offensive weapons are still more likely to generate quality shots, even in low-possession games. So, the opposite approach is gaining popularity, injecting chaos, pushing pace, creating more possessions, more opportunities for variance. If your roster isn't elite, why not play a style that keeps your opponent uncomfortable? And here's where it gets really interesting. The Celtics do have talent. They're not trying to manufacture upsets. They're trying to win a championship. So, what happens when a team this skilled also starts playing like they've got something to prove? Like every possession is a chance to break their opponent's spirit with relentless pace? That's a scary thought. Think about it. A team with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and Drew Holiday flying up and down the court, switching everything on defense, launching threes before the defense can even get set. It's not just about being fast, it's about being overwhelming. And don't forget the psychological toll this kind of style takes. Picture it. You're an opponent facing Boston, and from the opening tip, they're pushing tempo, hounding you on defense, subbing in fresh bodies every few minutes. Even if you keep up for a while, by the fourth quarter, you're spent. You're not just defending talented scorers. You're trying to survive a system that doesn't let you breathe. It's like facing a pitcher throwing nothing but off-speed knuckleballs in a league full of 100-mile-an-hour heaters. You're not used to it, and that unfamiliarity? That's a weapon. This approach isn't totally new. We saw flashes of it around the league last season. The Chicago Bulls, for example, played with a much faster tempo in the second half of the year. It wasn't about dominating with talent. It was about running other teams into the ground. And it worked. They didn't need to sub 4 guys at a time, but they maintained a breakneck pace that wore teams down. By the fourth quarter, their opponents were gassed. And that kind of relentless energy is hard to prepare for especially when you only see it once or twice during the season. Now, apply that logic to a Celtics roster that's already stacked. If Boston can keep their energy up for 4 quarters, they'll become one of the hardest matchups in the league. Not because of new plays or new schemes, but because of pressure, because of pace, because they're coming at you over and over, and there's no break, no rest. Just when you think you've caught your breath, another wave of defenders hits you. Another possession ends with an open corner three. Another loose ball gets scooped up and pushed in transition. Even on the offensive end, it's not necessarily about wild, fast breaks and alley-oops every play. Sometimes, pace just means getting into your sets faster, forcing the defense to scramble before they're ready, cutting down the decision-making time. The Celtics are aiming to eliminate lag between rebounds, inbounds, and half-court sets. No walking the ball up, no casual resets. You score on them? Fine. They'll inbound and be at the rim in 5 seconds. You miss? They're already running the break. This isn't just speed for the sake of it. It's controlled chaos. What makes this shift even more intriguing is how it opens the door for some of the less heralded guys on the roster. Players like Josh Minott, for instance, might have a real shot to carve out meaningful minutes this season. He's athletic, young, and according to reports, ready to buy into this new tempo-driven style. If you're a wing with size who can run, crash the glass, and hit the occasional three, you're suddenly valuable in this system. And that's especially important considering how thin the Celtics are up front. They don't have the deepest frontcourt rotation, but if the style covers some of those weaknesses, it might not matter. Guys like Xavier Tillman and Nemi Quetta might not scream elite starter on paper, but in a fast-paced system, effort and mobility become just as important as skill. If your bigs can run, set hard screens, and switch defensively without getting exposed, you're golden. And if one of those guys starts hitting corner threes, like we've heard Tillman has been working on, that's just icing on the cake. The early reports from training camp suggest this isn't just lip service. Players are already talking about it. Practices are reflecting it. The emphasis on conditioning, on decision-making speed, on defensive tenacity, it's real. And that's the most encouraging part. Because ideas are great, but unless they're implemented day in and day out, they don't mean anything. But this team, this year, they seem committed to the vision. Jaylen Brown even spoke recently about being in the best shape of his life. That might sound like a cliche, but it takes on new meaning when the plan is to run every opponent off the floor. JB has always been one of the most athletic wings in the league, and if he's fully healthy and dialed in, he could be a nightmare in transition. Same goes for Tatum. He's thrived in half-court situations, but he's underrated in the open floor. Give him space, and he's either getting to the rim or finding shooters. And while the stars always get the headlines, it's the supporting cast that might end up defining the success of this new high-octane Celtics identity. Because when you're playing fast, the margin for error grows slimmer, the minutes pile up faster, and depth becomes not just a luxury, but a necessity. That's where names like Josh Minott come back into focus. Now, Minott isn't exactly a household name yet, but don't be surprised if that changes quickly. He's a 22-year-old forward with raw tools, athleticism, and, according to people inside the organization, a chance to carve out a legitimate role this season. When he came into the league out of Memphis, the knocks were all about his frame and his jumper. People questioned whether he had the strength to handle bigger bodies inside, and if he had the shot to survive on the perimeter. But in his limited minutes between Minnesota and the G League, he started to shift that narrative. He shot over 85% from the free throw line and took threes at a high frequency for the amount of time he was on the court. That's a small sample, sure, but those are good indicators. Especially for a team like Boston, which doesn't need him to be a star. They just need him to fit the system. And what does that system demand? Speed, versatility, effort. A guy who can guard multiple positions, grab boards, and sprint the floor in transition fits perfectly into that mold. If Minott can hit corner threes at even a modest clip and stay active on both ends, he could become a valuable piece off the bench, especially if Sam Hauser is moved in a potential luxury tax-cutting trade. That's the kind of opportunity that can change a young player's career. Right place, right time, and right system. This ties directly into what the Celtics are facing this year beyond the basketball court. The financial side of things is starting to squeeze. They're one of the most expensive teams in the league, and there's already chatter about them needing to make a move to get under the second tax apron. That makes guys like Hauser, who have actual value around the league, potential trade candidates. If that happens, someone like Minot stepping up becomes not just useful, it becomes crucial. And then there's the rest of the wildcard group. The guys fighting for roles, fighting to prove they belong in the rotation. You've got Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez, each of them bringing something different to the table. Jordan Walsh, with his defensive motor and long arms, could sneak into minutes if he can show consistency with his shot. Gonzalez is a bit more of a mystery, but if he adjusts quickly to the pace and physicality of the NBA, there's an opening for him. The early part of the season is going to be a proving ground, and with the way this team wants to play, whoever keeps up will get rewarded. It also brings up an interesting point about roster construction. You look at the Celtics core, Tatum, Brown, Holiday, White, they're as solid as it gets. But what happens if one or two of them miss time? That's where this pace-first philosophy gets tested. You can't play fast if the depth can't keep up. That's why these early training camp notes matter. That's why seeing names like Xavier Tillman, Luka Garza, and Neemias Quetta making noise is more important than people think. It's not about who looks good in October. It's about who can be trusted in February when guys are banged up and the legs are heavy. And Xavier Tillman in particular could be a sneaky swing piece. Coming off a season where he battled a lingering knee issue, reports now suggest he's in better shape, hitting corner threes, and finally pain-free. If he can stay on the floor and provide even average spacing as a 5, that opens up so much for the Celtics offense. Suddenly, you're not just relying on Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis to stretch the floor from the big spot. You've got another option, another wrinkle, another way to keep the pace flowing without sacrificing size. And speaking of Horford, let's not gloss over the fact that he's returning on a 2-year deal with a player option in the second year. The man's pushing 40, but he's still a calming presence, a vet who knows how to anchor a defense, hit a timely 3, and lead by example. If this team is going to play faster, he might not be flying up and down the court like in his Atlanta days, but his IQ still matters. He knows where to be. He knows how to move the ball. He doesn't have to be a 30-minute-per-night guy anymore, but he'll be the connective tissue when things start to get chaotic. That's why this team feels different. Not just because of the stars, not just because of the speed, but because they've got layers. They've got old heads like Horford who bring stability, rising stars like Tatum and Brown in their prime, and a wave of hungry young players trying to crack the rotation. That mix of urgency and upside is rare, and it's dangerous if it clicks. Another name that can't be ignored in this conversation is Peyton Pritchard. He's been part of this roster for a few years now, and there were times last season when it felt like he might get squeezed out. But with the shift in play style, he's perfectly built for the new-look Celtics. He's fast, confident with the ball, and fearless when it comes to pulling the trigger from deep. If Boston really does push the pace the way they're hinting, Pritchard could thrive. He doesn't need a ton of space to get a shot off, and he's not afraid of contact. That makes him a perfect piece to keep defenses honest when the starters are catching their breath. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the NBA, the Boston Celtics reportedly pulled off what could be the most stunning acquisition of the season. Kawhi Leonard, the superstar forward from the Los Angeles Clippers, is allegedly heading to Boston. While nothing has been officially confirmed, sources close to the situation suggest that the Celtics have been quietly negotiating for weeks, and all signs point toward a blockbuster trade that could reshape the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. The rumor alone has fans buzzing across social media, with Celtics supporters dreaming of the day Leonard dons the green and white. Known for his ice-cold demeanor, defensive prowess, and clutch performances in high-stakes games, Leonard would bring a level of experience and star power that Boston hasn't seen since the days of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. The mere possibility of pairing him with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown has analysts speculating about Boston as a legitimate championship contender, perhaps even tipping the scales against perennial favorites like the Milwaukee Bucks and Miami Heat. Inside sources claim that the deal might involve multiple players and draft picks, though the exact details remain murky. Some speculate that the Celtics are willing to part with a combination of young talent and future assets to secure Leonard, a gamble that could either pay off spectacularly or backfire if injuries persist. Leonard, who has battled his share of physical setbacks in recent seasons, will need to stay healthy to justify the hefty price tag and expectations. Meanwhile, Clippers fans are reportedly in disbelief. The team has invested heavily in Leonard as their franchise cornerstone, and losing him could trigger a domino effect that alters the roster's trajectory for years to come. Speculation is rampant about who could step up in Los Angeles, but few have the pedigree or impact of a two-time Finals MVP. Whether it's rumor or near-future reality, one thing is clear: the NBA landscape is in flux. If Leonard indeed joins the Celtics, Boston fans may be witnessing the dawn of a new dynasty. For now, the league watches, tweets fly, and every Celtics game becomes a potential preview of what could be the most thrilling era in recent franchise history. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.